千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. I have a story that I want to share with you. It's about how we can change our perspective, especially when it comes to leading and following. We can use the Tao to help us select a perspective that is the empowering perspective. So let me share that story with you. Story called Traffic Lights. So as many of you know, a lot of times I like to tell stories from ancient traditions. Sometimes it is Chinese culture where I draw the story from. Sometimes it may be, for instance, a Zen Buddhist tradition where I draw the story from. Other times it may be the Tao tradition, like Zhuangzi has many great stories. This particular story is actually a true story. It happened in real life, and it's a story from the Yiguan Dao tradition in Taiwan. So in Yiguan Dao, there are levels of people who are responsible for teaching the Tao or leading in terms of Tao cultivation. The position may or may not correspond to the level of understanding in that person, but overall, everyone tries to share whatever wisdom they have realized, because sharing is caring, and the more you share the Tao, the more powerful the Tao becomes in a group. So in a Tao community, you're going to have lecturers, people who oftentimes will talk about a particular topic of the Tao. You have the ordained masters of Yiguan Dao, the Dianchuan Shi, and you also have the grandmasters, those who are at a higher, more senior level. So this is a true story about one such grandmaster of that tradition. This grandmaster was well known as a wise practitioner of the Tao. And because of that, many Tao communities and temples frequently invite him to speak. So he was more than glad to share the Tao with everyone, with as many people as he could. So he wanted to visit as many of these Tao communities and temples that have invited him as possible. But he was quite elderly. He was getting up there in age, so he needed help with transportation. So a follower of the Tao, a practitioner of the Tao, stepped up. He stepped forward and he volunteered to be the Grandmaster's driver. He considered this to be a great honor, to be able to drive the Grandmaster to different appointments, to different speaking engagements. And at the same time, he also felt this would be an opportunity for him to interact more with such a wise master of the Tao, to be able to learn from that interaction, to learn more, absorb more of his great wisdom. So one day, as usual, he was driving, taking the Grandmaster to yet another location to give yet another talk about the Tao. This time, he was driving through heavy traffic, and the driver was getting increasingly agitated by all the bad drivers on the road, the bad drivers around him. I'm sure you and I can relate to that. As we drive, we oftentimes encounter similar situations. While he was getting agitated, The Grandmaster sat in the back, perfectly at ease. So, the driver saw up ahead that the traffic light was about to change from green to yellow. So naturally, he knew that he only had a small window of opportunity to get past the intersection. So he stepped on the gas to zoom through. Unfortunately, he immediately had to slow down because the car in front of him was not going very fast. By the time he reached the intersection itself, the light had already turned from yellow to red, and the car in front of him went slowly past the intersection, and traffic from the other directions resumed. He slammed on his brake, stopped at the red light. He cursed loudly, hit the steering wheel to vent his frustration. Does that sound familiar? Have you done something similar? I have. But then the driver realized, he remembered that the Grandmaster was right behind him. And he had promised himself that when he was spending time with the Grandmaster, he would be on his best behavior. So he was kind of letting himself down here. He felt greatly embarrassed. So he apologized. He said, "Sorry, Master. I was just a little upset that I wasn't able to get across the intersection before the light turned red." The Grandmaster asked him, "Why would that be a cause for feeling upset?" The driver said, "Well, unfortunately, I was just a tad too slow. And because of that, now we're stuck. We're stuck here, having to wait for the light to change again. I don't like falling behind, that's all." The Grandmaster said, "Think of it this way. When the light turns green, you will be the first to cross the intersection. Out of all the cars on this side of the red light, you will be in the lead and not behind anyone." The driver thought about it and had to admit such an idea had never occurred to him before. The Grandmaster continued, "Had you succeeded in beating the red light as you wished, your situation would actually be the opposite. You would, of course, be the last car in the previous group of cars, trailing everyone and driving through their exhaust fumes, right?" The driver nodded. The Grandmaster was only stating facts and presenting a different perspective on them. Somehow, the driver's agitation and frustration disappeared into thin air. So I'll be the first. So there you have it, a true story from that particular Grandmaster. Notice that nothing at all has changed about the driver's situation. But just by looking at it differently, skillfully choosing the perspective that is empowering rather than frustrating, the Grandmaster demonstrated how easily you can master your internal emotional states. Now, what the Grandmaster said applies to the journey of life as well. So remember, this line of the Daodejing is talking about all things lead or follow. So in that same way, you can see yourself as being behind a group of people, and you can think of that group of people as teachers to learn from, so the people that you follow in the journey of life. you can also see yourself in a leading position of another group, those who can follow you and learn from you. So the reality, the truth, is that you are not one or the other. You are always both. Can everyone see that? So this has an important bearing upon a point that Lao Tzu will get to toward the end of this chapter. So please keep it in mind. And you may even want to extend a little bit from this point and be even more accurate. The most accurate statement that you can make about your position in the journey of life is that you, I'm addressing you directly, I'm addressing the true self, talking about you. You occupy all possible positions all the time in the journey of life. First, last, and everything in between. You are always leading some people, you are always following some people, and you are always somewhere in between. So that is the key realization behind this particular story. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.